Welcome back, Barry. Good to see you again.
Yeah, and you too, Euan. But we're a year older now, aren't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Time has flown since the last time we spoke,
Yeah.
hasn't it? You've been up to quite a lot of interesting things. You've got some news to share with the audience.
Yes, the first people to hear this, isn't it? Well, there's been a major development on the, what we call it, rock goes to college scene, or went to college, sorry, finishing the BBC line there. I got approached last year by the chief librarian at the university, and part of his remit is to look at somehow forging stronger links between the local community and that elite estate up on the hill. Phoned me out of the blue and said, I've been researching, and it seems to me the only time when the university was really relevant to the local population was when you were doing the concerts. And I said, funny you should say that. I kept trying to tell the university that for 15 years, battling against them, who desperately wanted to shut them down. So he said, well, I think it should be recognised. So I said, great. Heard that before. And then he came back with the concept, because this year is the university's 60th birthday. We were looking at doing something last year, but it made more sense to do it obviously in the 60th year, because there's going to be a year of celebrations of various things. And we've got Lancaster Civic Society involved, and they're going to put a blue plaque on the Great Hall to the shows and the place in music history and local music history. And we're going to have a weekend of live music to celebrate in the Great Hall.
Amazing.
The second edition of the book, which we were talking about last time, has now sold out. So I got a lot of people contacting me saying, hey, I've got some stuff, I've got some photos. And I thought part of the reason why Lancaster was so successful was geography and et cetera, but actually a big part of that was the audience. The audience reaction and the atmosphere was created was outstanding. I mean, a lot of artists talk about it. Andrew, the librarian, was actually down in Manchester the other day and was talking to Johnny Marr, who sort of said, do they not do the show still anymore? He said that was one of the best acoustic venues we've ever played, and it was a great atmosphere. So he said, no, unfortunately they don't. So I thought, why not do a third edition of the book? Only this time, I've got lots of stories that I'd forgotten and added, and that's why I've added. I've got other people to contribute, but I've also got a lot of stories from the general populace, people who went, I remember this, or, I met Sunshine in the bar and I bumped into Blondie in the fish and chip shop and all that kind of stuff. So we've included all those, as well as things like Dave Stewart, a major, not as in the artist, this is a photographer. If you go on Wikipedia and you look at it, born in Lancaster, and he started his career filming on Morecambe seafront with the tourists and the monkey on the shoulder and, taking the photo, the old classic seaside photographs and everything. And then he went to Blackpool College of Technology and Art, which was quite a high standard back in the 70s, and produced some great work. He came up and did lots of shots at the Great Hall. So he contacted us on the back of that and said, hey, I used to come up there as a punter and take photographs. I'm now in the Royal Society of whatevers, and he wins awards all over the world. He's one of the best fashion and portrait photographers in the world now. But I've got all these shots from Lancaster the Great Hall. You can have as many as you want. So we included some of acts that we hadn't got. Later on, they tended to be the sort of punk and into Van Morrison and all that sort of era, rather than that middle 70s. So and then there were other contributors that came out of the blue, which were quite interesting. Some of which we can mention later on, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. Because just touching on that, then, is there a chance where maybe some of those bands that maybe were early days back in the day, do you reckon? I mean, you probably may not be able to say, but would there be a conversation perhaps being going on with some of these bands to try and get them back if they remember the good days?
There was, but actually, in the first edition of the book, we've got a page at the back of the book of people who've died while I was writing the book. If I did that now, it would be half the book. So, there's too many bands out there who are now, in my mind, tribute bands. They've got like one original member or something like that. I was looking at talking to local musicians who played, because I'd put a lot of support bands on from the local community with the bigger names at times. It was very hard because none of those bands exist anymore because half the band are dead. You know, some of the musicians are still going as parts of other bands and all that sort of stuff. And then a couple of musicians said to me, well, yeah, it was great and there were wonderful times, but that was then, you know. So we had a conversation about it and we thought that has been a brilliant period. We're celebrating that period. We're remembering that period, teaching people who didn't know it existed, and the amount of people I've younger, i.e. under 30, who cannot believe that those acts played in little old Lancaster. So we're educating, but actually it's great memories for a load of people. But that was then. So what we're going to do with the weekend that we're doing is we're involving the Lancaster Musicians Cooperative, who've had a big boost because they bought that building and they're getting it renovated. And by the end of this next year, 2024, they're going to be up and running as a performance venue again. And why don't they provide the bands for that night? That was the idea. So we talked with the director and said, there you go, put on 4 new young bands from this area. And he's found four which is a spread of different kinds of music. So everybody's not going to like all 4, but you're going to like 1 or 2 or 3 of them. They're going to play. Obviously, I'll have the third edition and book out. So we'll do a book signing, but a chat with Andrew from the library. We're going to sit on stage and talk a bit of questions and answers and things. And then the bands are going to play for the rest of the night. On the
Cool. Is there a release date planned?
There is indeed. It's it's quite sad, really. So we're doing the Blue Plaque on the Friday afternoon. Oh, sorry, the other thing that the university are creating is a permanent exhibition in the foyer of the Great Hall for these concerts. It's obviously going to rotate because, you know, there's 350 concerts, 800 bands, so it's going to rotate because we've got lots of posters and photographs and memorabilia from those concerts that's going to change perpetually. The university started by putting a massive, on the spines near Furness College, just past Furness College, they've got about 18 massive 2-meter reproductive photographs of the artists on stage, of various artists on the stage there, most of which students are going, who? Really, really well done. And so the exhibition is going to be there as a permanent exhibition in the foyer of the Great Hall. So, you know.
Amazing.
So as I said, there's going to be new young bands on that. When I just said it was sad, unfortunately, that's going to be the 16th of March. So the Blue Plaque is the 15th. This is going to be the 16th, the show. The Students' Union are going to put a show on the 17th. And why I said it was really sad is 17th is St. Patrick's night. If it had fallen right and so Saturday would have been St. Patrick's night, it would have been the anniversary of the Van Morrison concert because that was a St. Patrick's night. He'd had 10 years, I think it was, off without doing any live shows. And he came back to do about 8 shows in this country, and one of which was Lancaster, well, the only university was Lancaster University. All the rest were obviously the big city halls or the stadium-y ones. So that would have been a nice, I hate to think how long ago it was.
That sounds exciting though.
Yeah.
And certainly going to be fascinating to see. I reckon it's going to be a massively popular event. And so in terms of that, is everything underway now in terms of the underhand? Is everything underway now in terms of the book? And
yeah, I've just finished. I'm waiting for one. It's really funny. We've just moved house, and somebody at the university said, "Oh, there's something in the skip at the university you might like." So I said, "Oh, what?" And so anyway, it came along with this massive sign, the Great Hall, which was a sign over the door, under which several tens of thousands of my punters had walked under over the 15 years. Anyway, we moved house, and this guy was buying some of our furniture because we downsized. And he said, "Why have you got that sign?" And I said, "Well, I used to do a few things up there." And he said, "Are you Barry Lucas?" So I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I was in a punk band. You put me on." So I said, "Right, great." So I'd found a concert that I didn't know I'd put on. So I said, "Get me the info." So, got photographs and everything for that. So there's little bits of that sort of coming through, which is going to be quite exciting in a way. So yes, that's all finished now, except I'm waiting for his photographs. He keeps promising me that. The other aspects, the bands that are finalised, but I understand you're probably going to be talking direct with Derek, aren't you, on that one? So let him talk about the bands. He's far more knowledgeable about than I am. And it should be a great weekend, really.
Yeah. Have you found in the momentum as each of the editions have been released? Have you found that the momentum and the awareness has become bigger? Has it snowballed? Has it got more global? Has it got wider?
Yeah, well, yes and no. Yeah, I mean, we're still getting. I've sent the books out myself to Australia, Thailand, USA, France, and Spain in the last month or so. So yeah, people are catching. I mean, I bumped into somebody the other day. I go, "Oh, I used to go to all those shows." I said, "Oh, did you get a book? What book?" You know, and you're going, "What?" You know. But I tell you what amazes me. I was amazed how many people who bought the first edition bought the second edition. I mean, it's not a reprint. They are new editions. So there's in the second one there was 40 odd new photographs, a couple of concerts we missed, and a lot of memories. This one we've got more. We've got a few more photographs, a few more posters, and a couple of concerts. But generally speaking, it's more the people's remembrances. I mean, I've got people like the agent who booked for the first probably 4 or 5 years, who booked quite a lot of the acts into Lancaster, Rob, who now lives in Florida. I was thinking, God, he went down as an 18-year-old down to London to join Island Artists. Chris Blackwell had the record company, but then he thought, hang on, why am I'm breaking all these acts. Most of them got managers and agents, so why don't we? So he set up an agency, and he saw how well Rob, he was only about 18, was up in Hull working, got hold of Rob and said, "Do you want a job?" So he came down, and so I thought, people of a certain age realise how important Island Record Company was in those days. The Island label was magic in the late 60s through to late 70s. Loads and loads of acts. They were not just, they were breaking those acts, so they were creating those acts. But it was such, I mean, I'd been down a few times to the thing, and it was a weird experience, because you were sitting out. They put me it was near Portobello Road, so put me in the Portobello Hotel for once, and you were having breakfast with Maria Schneider, with I think there was about 4 or 5 other major artists sat around breakfast tables and that. You came back at 11 o'clock at night, and all the staff were laying on. It's an old Victorian house, but everybody was lying around smoking joints and everything. You're going, this isn't quite Claridge's, but anyway. But so I said, Rob, tell us the story, because people don't realise what Ireland was like in those days. So he's written me a piece about arriving as an 18-year-old in a 3-piece suit and a tie on, and everybody else is laying about with sandals and on big cushions smoking joints in the offices. So it's an interesting story.
Younger people are now battling against the whole subscription service model, and how you do not really kind of own the products that you buy, you just merely rent them. Do you think that's kind of had a combined kind of impact in terms of younger people becoming more aware, and then will naturally want to seek out this experience and story, you know?
It's funny, Jeff Campbell came up to see me, who did all the photographs and was my assistant for a few years before he went down to Exeter University and did the same job down there. But he was saying he was up in Windermere with the sons and daughters of a couple of friends of his, and he said they're all in their late teens, early 20s, and all their walls in their room were full of Jeff's photographs that they'd lifted off his website and posters from that sort of period. I mean, it was good music. I mean, I went into teaching for a while, and then the kids, primary school kids, were scared stiff of the word classical, you know. And I said, look, it's not classical literature, it's not classical music. Classical just means it's lasted, you know. The Beatles are classical music because it's 60 years on and people are still listening to it, you know, and buying it actually now with
absolutely.
New number 1.
Absolutely. What did you make of that?
I actually quite liked it. I mean, I was quite surprised, really. One thing that really gets me about the way that music is listened to now is that Spotify thing, all that sort of stuff. You're picking a track. When we bought an album, we often bought it for one track, But actually, there were 12 tracks on the album. And after playing it a few times, you think, oh, I really like that. I don't like that. You don't get that experience through the media at the moment.
It's the journey of going from track 1 to track 12 and going on that journey with the band. Yeah, absolutely.
And remember, there was a big fashion in the 70s. And it started actually with the Pretty Things. But you think of people like The Who took it on that, of actually concept albums where the whole album was about one idea. You know, Tommy was a great idea, Quadrophenius and this sort of thing. But they were telling a story within the... Well, you can't do that on Spotify track, can you?
No. There's definitely, in some ways, a greater connection between artist and fan when you're at a gig and you're there and you're sharing that experience that you've had because you've gone and had that experience by listening to the whole album. There's probably just a different kind of vibe there.
It seems to me to be that most people now like the live experience in terms of a festival, in terms of an event itself. So they're not actually particularly... Well, Glastonbury is a prime example of that. It sells out before they even announce the bill. At ridiculous money and ridiculous numbers.
I know.
So people are enjoying that. The music, that period that I'm talking of, that I was mainly promoting in through the 70s and the 80s, a lot of those bands were new, young, but they were the same age as their audience, and they were the same interests as their audience, even in those early 70s days. I mean, the story of The Who that I said about them going and sitting with the fans and 2 in the morning, dishing out teas and coffees in the square in Lancaster. Would it happen today?
That's the thing.
Maybe, but there were lots of examples of the bands going to local bars on campus, Bad Company going down to the Royal Albert and having their lunch or evening meal kind of thing. I may be wrong, but I don't get that feeling that there's that closeness with the fans now. And certainly when you get up into the superstars, why would you? They're protected. They're whisked away. Even if they wanted to, they wouldn't be allowed to by management or,
Yeah, there's absolutely no way you can, because you're right. Everyone's protected. Everyone is now a brand. Everyone is now blocked off behind some sort of management and because they want to protect their asset, they want to protect their brands. I think you're right. I think the idea of 70s and 80s where you could reach out and almost be within touching distance or be a part of that, and the artist be one of the people. I think there's some modern artists now that are kind of coming through that are a bit more, I suppose, like your Lewis Capaldis and other artists like that who are kind of one of the people in a sense. There's a bit of resurgence maybe there.
You could understand how management, etc., want to protect artists in the terms of everybody's got a camera. Everybody can record anything that's done rightly or wrongly, or mistakes made. So you don't want that blowing up in people's faces. So you can sort of understand it. But if you think, we had a prime example with John Martin at Lancaster University. I mean, John Martin came as a support act, as a 50 quid folk singer. He then became a one-man Pink Floyd. He was then selling out shows every time he came, and he played 10 times, I think, for me. But he'd sit on a chair with his guitar and his magic box, and the audience would sit up on stage with him. Okay, there was like 1,500 people in the hall. There were 500 sat on the stage around him, and he was rolling joints, passing them out. People were coming. He was a very good businessman because he passed one joint out and got about 30 back. But, I mean, it was a pain in the neck because the show went on till bloody 1 in the morning. And get off, John, and go home. I've got a movie to watch. They were part of the whole experience as much as he was. And to be fair to John, he felt the audience was much part of the experience as he. They weren't there to watch him play. They were there to join in.
You wouldn't imagine that with physically being on stage with acts like Ed Sheeran.
I just don't see that everyday connection that a lot of the bands in the 70s had with their audience. To be fair, that was happening through the 70s in that sort of the superstardom bit and the big extravaganza stage shows, and certainly when you got into doing the bigger venues, when you went up to the 10,000 capacity venues, that was starting to get lost. Hence, punk took it right back to how it was in the 60s and that, because it suddenly the kids next door were playing, and some of it was bloody brilliant. It felt like they were all mates together. We're a bit, and it was a bit like the Doors singing "Come On, they've got the guns, but we've got the numbers. We're taking over. You know,
Yeah.
it's a bit us against society.
With the advent of so many different venues closing down, or so many different venues being kind of shuttered down by authorities and things like that, you know, where do new bands go now?
I was doing the shows when the music cooperative was first started, kind of thing. So it's great. The trouble is, you've got to be careful you're not selling a dream that doesn't exist, because you know they're creating. Oh, you know, we've got a really tight band. Great, let's go out and play in front of people. Where? That's the other thing. But also, I think you know, you wouldn't expect your plumber to come in and repair your bath for nothing. You know, why on earth should you get your entertainment for nothing? The audience have got to take responsibility for this. You know, I've got close friends who I respect and know more about music than I do, who said, "Oh, I haven't paid for any music for 10 years." And I'm going, why is that a boast? I mean, you know, and they look at me like I'm being down. I said, you know, you've got, it doesn't matter whether you're buying product, and of course you look at those figures, Spotify were horrendous. 6 billion quid they made, 0.003% they give an artist. I mean, that's something bigger than we can all, but we can all help in the sense of if a venue is putting live music on, go. If it's 50 pence a pint more there than it is down the road, they're putting live music on. The guy has got to pay those for their services, because if they're an electrician, they're a plumber, they're whatever else, they're doing a job. You're not getting it for free. So, and if he's paying them, you should help him pay them by going along and being prepared to pay a little bit more. People's reaction, if a pub tries to charge you anything to go into it, if there's live music on, people are horrified. Why? You know, what else? Younger people are now starting to buy. Well, obviously vinyl has resurged for quite a number of years now, but I hear more recently about cassettes, and I suppose maybe even since the pandemic, CDs have started to. I think I read recently that CDs have started to sort of have where they were fairly even. They've kind of stayed even, but vinyl and cassettes have started to raise. So artists have responded appropriately to that, and I'm really fascinated as to how come that is. For anybody who's not got a record player, that thrill of buying an album, carrying it home, putting it on a turntable, actually being able to see the tracks, to actually, a lot of them, being able to follow the words, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It's so much better than pressing a button on you know, Boom Radio or whatever. Sorry, I'm showing my age. You know, God forbid you listen to Radio 1, but you know, that kind of thing. It's a totally different experience. I mean, I still think vinyl is the expression of that kind of enjoyment of the whole experience. Of buying a record or buying a piece of music. It's still got the same track. It's just a different feel and a different experience. And, I think there's perhaps one counter argument to say that the democratization, the availability of it is meant to be seen as a good thing. But I think when it's kind of guarded behind a paywall, and I now know that many people in many different industries, whether it be music, film, or even video games, are now saying, no, we want physical. I still buy physical because I like to read the sleeve. I like to, when I'm listening, read what's inside. I like to know who the producers were, the sound engineers were, and even in the world of film music as well, knowing who the composer was, the team who orchestrated it. There's just more than one person that does that side of things. There is a sense that things are starting to turn around. I think there'll hopefully be a lot of positive change in 2024. Well, I mean, the thing is, a lot of that is forced economically. The cost of going out for a couple of pints is now. So those places that want to make it work as a play have got to think in terms of something other than showing Sky Sports. And that's why places like the Exchange in Morecambe are doing so well, because they're putting live music on, because people know there's going to be a decent band on, and they're not charging to get in, and they're actually quite a reasonable beer price, but it's getting people in there, as opposed to the pub around the corner who haven't got anybody in there except, you know, maybe a television in the corner. It's
Mhm.
not the same
No,
experience, is it?
no, it isn't. Certainly, like the venues, like the Cantina in Lancaster,
Well,
and
the
you know,
pub in Lancaster is sorry, I
yeah,
should have mentioned that earlier. That
Mm.
because they've been fighting a lone battle for quite a bit of time.
yeah, I absolutely that whole area.
Yeah,
Even
well,
if
John O'Gorn has always been a live music venue
yes,
as long as I can remember being in
and
Lancaster.
me,
You know, they're having problems, aren't they, with the local
Mm.
authority, and you can't have a stage there. And you go,
Aye.
why? You know,
I know. It'll certainly feel like with venues like the Gregson and Cantina and the Musicians Co-op, I think those sort of three venues in close proximity they'll start to get that sense of community, that army against, army of one will become an army of three.
Well, I think I've got a good example of that on the pub with the mural. You know,
Yes.
a massive,
Yes.
to totally
massive
take it
like,
down.
yeah.
And there was such an outcry on that. Sorry, we've been knocking social media in a sense, but actually that generated such the council went, oh, we might make a boo-boo here, and back down on it for some, But they've got another problem. It's the pub, because buildings around them are going to get turned into flats. They know full well what's going to happen.
Yes.
The people are going to say, oh, that's very nice. I bought this lovely apartment overlooking I don't want music, blasting out. But then why buy a flat opposite a live music building?
Exactly. Although I suppose ironically as well, there's so many of the properties are now being made into residences for students and things. So you would think, well, you've clearly got a sense of a market there. Why not provide those venues?
When I came to Lancaster late 60s and through the early 70s, lived in Lancaster, the amount of pubs around that area you're talking about that are all closed now.
Yeah.
And there were pubs all down that sort of that first part of the town around there, and they've either been pulled down, boarded up, or as you say, they're getting turned into student accommodation, presuming that students aren't still as fascinated by live music as they were.
Oh, I know they are, because that's the thing. This is
I'm
what I
yet
mean.
to be convinced.
See, this is what I think. When I think there will be a resurgence, and I think when people realise that value, experience, and cost will be three different things.
I think we've gone full circle in the sense that I agree that most students will say, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in music," but they're interested in 3-4 minute hits,
right?
Not in an album length or CD length and listening to that. They want to putting together their own little greatest hits thing. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than a greatest hits. I mean, I'm not pure in that sense. I buy lots of greatest hits, but actually, you're thinking, but it's a bit. If everyone's a hit, it's a bit monotonous. Because every track is so familiar that you're actually you end up not listening to it. To be honest, it's great. It's background music while you're making a bacon butty. Or something.
Yeah. In terms of promoters, then, do you all kind of because I know you've had connections with Harvey Goldsmith and people like that. In terms of, do you still keep in touch with them?
No, not on a day-to-day basis. But if I ever, want to book a band or want to go to a show, why am I being hypocritical there? Because I'm trying to get on the guest list. Anyway, I always get. The nice thing is I always get me calls answered. I always get them picked up, and people that I haven't. I was talking to recently, Phil McIntyre, that I hadn't spoken to in about 30 years, and they said, "Oh yeah," because he lived in Preston, and we go to each other's houses and whatever else, and he used to run coaches to the shows at the uni when it was a Preston Poly social sec, So
wow,
yeah. Oh, you get your phone calls answered, so there's still a bit of respect there.
Nice. Who would you say, if I was to be really bold, who would you say would be the most well-known person that's in your phone at the moment that you get an answer from?
Andy Kershaw for what another thing. Paul Lowsby. I get the trouble is some of them will be people that people don't know. Paul Lowsby is Jules Holland's manager and Pink Floyd's manager, Dave Gilmour's manager, etc. He's godfather to my kids, and and then Neil Warnock, who's head of ITB. I was helping out, sorting out a Status Quo gig up at Kendal 2 or 3 years ago, and they were having problems. So this guy said, "Do you know?" Well, yeah. So I phoned him up and I said to his secretary and said, "Can you put me through?" So I said, "Who is it?" So I told her, and he picked the phone up straight away, and I was quite gobsmacked because we didn't get on that well at this when I was promoting. But as you say, you know, people maybe a bit of curiosity. What the hell has he been doing for the last 20 years? You know,
in theory, you could do another when rock came to like Lancaster. You could actually get some names back to Lancaster again, potentially.
Well, yeah. I mean, I could if I wasn't going to get killed if I just attempted to do it, but by the missus. But
she'd love it. She'd be there.
There was a period about 10 years ago when the university approached me and said, "Do you want to start the shows up again?" Not really. I said, you know, because I'd be selling a false dream because people were, oh, bloody hell, the Who will come in and, you know, Pink Floyd and da-da-da. You know, bands don't tour like they used to do in those respects. So because they were touring to sell product. So I said, not really. But then I phoned Jeff up in Exeter, and he said, well, yeah, he said, give Simon Moran a phone Manchester. And Simon Moran said, yeah, we'd put shows in with you. You know, I said, they're only, you know, the university, if they are only talking about 1,100 capacity. Fine, we'll do that. Phil Mackinson said, yeah, I'll put the comics in and all that sort of stuff, and then other people get. So I said, oh, all right. So I went back to university and said, okay, yeah, all right. Give me Fridays and Saturday nights. I'm not going to take them all, but give me those, and I will tell you before the term starts whether I'm going to use them. But I need to, if a promoter phones me up, I need to be able to say yes rather than, oh, wait, and I've got to go and check with somebody, check with the committee and whatever. That seemed fine. And then I went back with 4 major acts, Jules Holland, Paul Weller, Lenny Henry, and the university went, oh, no, well, we need to check whether these fit into our artistic programming and oh, you can't have that you can't have Saturdays because the University Student Ballrooms and Dancing Society has it. I've been here, done this.
Yeah.
No.
Bringing back memories.
Yeah, no. Right. Which was sad, really. But I mean, it's a different world.
What about an off-campus venue, or would that be?
It's size. It's size that's the problem now. That is. I mean, Cantina are doing really well. Some of the acts they're putting on are excellent, you know. But they've got a big space, and a big flat, big open space. That's the key to that one. I mean, a bit like the Great Hall was, you know. It was a stand-up, so you know, without being too obvious, you know, you can get more people into a small room if they're stood up than if they're sat down. But where would you do it? I mean, the one area the one place where you should be able to do it if it was done properly is the Winter Garden, because that used to be. And I know it wouldn't be the case today, but that used to be, when I started looking at it, it was 2,300 seated. That was in the middle to late 70s, when the university said, oh my God, we've got to get rid of him off campus, and went to Trust House Board and said, will you take all our shows? And they went, oh, yeah. So we nearly moved them all out there. The only reason we didn't is they wouldn't give me exclusivity on the winter programme. I said, you can have your summer programme, I just want the winter months. But if I'm building this up as a venue, or if not me, but the student union building this up a venue, we don't want Harvey Goldsmith to be able to go direct to you and book cutting us out. You know, once the place had been established as a venue, and they wouldn't give us that, and then sort of realised quite quickly afterwards, because they then put in an application to have it demolished. You know, so they weren't interested in.
I'm wondering, in terms of Eden, what your thoughts are, because that's going to be potentially a new venue as part of the overall development there, which could be probably even larger.
As far as I understand, the venue aspect of Eden is an open air, 5,000 capacity. A bit similar. I don't know whether you've been to the Eden project down south.
Not yet. No.
It's an orbit stage in an amphitheatre. It's very nice, but the weather's slightly better down there. I'm not quite sure whether anybody's worked out how many sunny days you can sit outside and listen to music in Morecambe, because there aren't an awful lot. I know there's climate change coming, and we might end up like the Sahara, but at the moment, you know, I mean, have you been around here recently?
Oh, tell me about it. Absolutely.
One venue we've not mentioned is the Alhambra.
Carlton.
The old Carlton. A friend of mine, Ivan Harrison, who runs a sleazy festival, was looking at it to put some shows on, asked me if I'd go and have a look at it. And I walked with him and we went, and this was before there'd actually, I think they'd only put one show on or something. But we walked into the venue, and as soon as I walked in, because I remember it's the Carlton, and they've changed the whole thing around now, and it just went, and I said to Adam, this is a rock venue. And it's just, it feels like a rock venue. It really does. And I went to see Massives there, and that was good. But you just think there's stage across the back there, all round. You can have the bar area works because people can actually have a drink and talk, and not hit with. So it's a fabulous venue. But again, you're struggling because I think it's something like 750 capacity. That's the problem, because to be on the road now costs bands a lot of money, and they're not selling products. So the only reason they're on the road is to make money. So they've got to charge more, which is why tickets have gone stupid.
Yeah. If there was a big enough draw, I think would people go rain, hail, or shine? They may well do.
They do, they would do, but
especially if they're paid enough.
Yeah. I was walking a football club for a weekend of events, but that all sort of collapsed on the back of the City Council's licensing authorities. So,
right.
Who are legendary. And it's nice that it's passed down from father to son in that department, because they're all exactly the same as they were 40 years ago.
Yes, it is interesting, isn't it? I think where innovation and tradition sort of collide, there is always
I never quite understand it, why anybody wants to be a licensing officer who doesn't enjoy live entertainment.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Maybe I should try and get one for the podcast, an actual licensing officer who loves, by day will enforce temporary events notices, but by night will love to go and have a massive, just goes to Preston, or, I mean, even, Guildhall is not open, but I think they're talking about reviving some way, shape or form. But yeah, go to say Manchester and go to Night and Day, or in fact, is that venue even? I'm throwing out venues. I'm thinking, I'm sure these venues are all coming under threat at the minute. Oh man. So who just likes to let their hair down of a weekend? That would be. If anyone knows of any, comment below. So yeah, that would be quite good to see. We've not kind of looked back, I think, in this chat this time round in terms of the book, because I know that what I think is really interesting is that a lot of those testimonials will clearly come from your audience.
Oh, one thing I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
Which is actually quite important. This event, the concert, the Saturday concert
in mid-March.
John Angus has agreed to come out of retirement to do the poster for it.
Really?
It took me a long time to persuade him, because he was of the opinion that was me then. I've finished. I'm not doing it anymore.
Really?
It's just an old fogey. I said, yeah, but what an old fogey. And get the team back together. Jeff Campbell's going to come up and take some photographs from Exeter and a poster from you. So he's agreed to do the poster. So that's because people who know John Angus posters, they're legendary. I mean, might not be to everybody's taste, but then John's posters never were. They were just, they are now collector's pieces. Be warned. I went to a memorabilia thing at the Story Institute 2 or 3 years ago, and somebody was saying to me, one of the guys was saying to me, have you kept any John Angus posters? So I said, no. I said, I haven't kept any posters. I haven't kept anything back in the day. I said, I used to sell them at the end of the year, 50 pence to the students each, and we put the money into a pot for the bouncers' Christmas piss up. So he said, that's a shame. So I said, why? He said, well, if you'd have got that one, pointing to Feel Good, I'd give you £1,000 for that one. If you've got that one, John Cooper Clarke, I'd give you £1,200 because of the bill that was on it. Joy Division were third on the bill. The Joy Division Fashion from Manchester, and John Cooper Clarke was head of the bill. Anyway, so that poster would have been £1,200. And he went on, so I'm just warning people, if they want to try and get hold of it.
So John,
in 40 years' time, it'll be worth some money. Right?
I would see John Angus quite a bit, and not once was I aware that he did the artwork for the college, and not once did he ever mention it. So he's very, very humble about it, and so
But you didn't know that he'd exhibitions at the Barbican of the show, exhibitions in Manchester.
No, wet behind the ears, 23-year-old. Absolutely
right.
no idea
Should
whatsoever.
have asked me.
I know I should have. I should have.
I knew you back in those days as
Oh,
well.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh well, hopefully if John is watching or listening, that's pretty cool to learn that about him. I suppose the third edition will be about a lot of the audience's testimonials and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost looking back, but also looking forward and thinking how good it was back then, but how good it could be if. And I think this could be almost like a marker point in time for Lancaster. What do you think?
That's the whole point of it. It could have just degenerated almost into just a nostalgia, you know. Or wasn't it great when? Look at how terrible it is now. What you're saying is, it was good then.
Yeah.
But as you say, it might be good in the future, and certainly the resurgence of the Musicians Cooperative hopefully will lead like that, and we can work together on this one and make it a night to remember.
Absolutely.
And maybe you will see a superstar in a few years' time. Oh, I saw them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
£1.50 or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. There is a lot which I can, even being down here for about 20 years now, scarily, I can see the ebb and flow. I can see there is now it's beginning to turn full circle again, and I think that with obviously some new bells and whistles on board, obviously social media. I mean, I suppose podcasts exactly. In terms of the impact that even some of these emergent technologies are having on music, I think that there's almost like another conversation to be had about, you know, the so-called fear and trepidation that people have about artificial intelligence and how its ability to so-called replicate or create music that's not being created by anyone.
Yes, but if you think back to you know, back in the day, with we've had lots of individual oh, that track's been lifted, or that riff has been lifted, but actually people like, I mean, Bruce Springsteen was being crucified early doors when that stupid Rolling Stone, This Is the Future of Rock and Roll, nearly blew his career, because it stopped me listening to Bruce Springsteen for about 5 years. It was only when Paul Losby was staying with me, we'd got Leonard Skinner on at the uni, and he was staying, and it got to 2 a.m, I got through a bottle of bourbon, and he said, "Have you got any Bruce Springsteen?" I said, "Well, I've got a couple of albums, but I've never played them." "Oh, you got to stick it." So anyway, but Springsteen was criticised heavily for, oh, it's influenced by the Beatles, or it's influenced by Stones, or there's influences. And you're thinking, if you're a young lad listening to that music, you've got to be influenced by it. Nobody's totally creative that they've not, you know, it's impossible. Be a writer or a musician or a singer. There's things that you've taken in and learned. They become your own, but they're not copied. They're just absorbed, aren't they? You know.
Hopefully a seed change, and then a real sense of positivity again, as opposed to like the doom and gloom that's happened.
You've just got to hope people actually like going out
and
socialising, as opposed to sitting inside and socialising with a screen.
That's true.
I was a primary school governor for 28 years, and I was horrified one time when we were appointing a couple of dinner ladies. The head was sort of saying to us as governors, we need to appoint a couple of people who know how to play playground games. And I'm going, why? I said, because we need to teach the children how to play.
Yeah.
And you're thinking,
they're never in skipping ropes.
Horrendous, isn't it? You know, give them a guitar.
Exactly. Sit down in the summer. I know a load of schools have got, you know, willow domes and seats and things like that, little communal areas, you know, luckily enough to have a space in their playground where they could just get together and have a sing. 100%, and it wouldn't cost anything. You would need no tech. Just need someone to just sit down and just do it. Yeah. Who'd have thought that in order to be successful, just nurturing and caring is somehow what people are looking for now? It's just who would have thought that would even have been a thing? But no, you're right. I think in terms of music making, I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but especially for young people now who are not or are struggling to access music making tools, just grabbing an instrument, just having a go, and, you know, it not being about getting it right or wrong or some perceived curriculum that's kind of brought in by the government. Just to have a chance just to sit down and experiment and experience music for the first time, I think is is going to be even more important.
You sound like Malcolm McLaren.
Do I?
I mean, that's the definition of punk.
I like that. I'll take that.
You know, yeah, I mean, get together. You can't play your instruments. You learn as you go along. You know,
Yeah.
I know what kind of sound I want to make. I just don't know how to make it. Well, I'll find out.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing about being in a band and just sitting down and having a noodle and having a play and just thinking, yeah, that works, and then jam an idea. I love that whole, and I really want that to be what kids experience now. And I think that's the exciting thing about the music co-op, that hopefully will become a space for people to come together and noodle and create something fresh and get out there and play it. And hopefully, you never know, there will be future Barry Lucases on the horizon who'll be able to go, I like you, I know where you're going to be good, I know where the audience that will really suit you, get them together and then and put it on. But
hopefully
we need people to learn the lessons of those who've gone before, and then to, you know, sweet talk the licensing people to get involved, to know who to get on the phone to make things happen. That's what we need as well. In terms of the third edition, I know that you'd mentioned last time with the second now sold out edition was through Carnegie and a few bookshops. Where can people get the third one?
Well, it looks like what we might be able to do is to put it back out to bookshops on this one, because we've managed to get a very good deal, which means that it's not as expensive as the last one to produce. So it will be through Carnegie. It will, of course, be on the night. If people want to come up to that, and they'll get a copy reduced price, and might even get a squiggle in it if they want.
Yeah.
The university will be selling the books now as well.
Okay.
So it'll be on sale on campus.
Fantastic. In terms of the event, will people be able to go to Lancaster University website and find out more details?
I would guess so, yes. This is early doors.
Yeah.
This first announcement.
Yeah.
But they will be selling it through, I can't remember what that...
Eventbrite.
Is that it? Yeah.
Eventbrite, yeah.
Well, you don't have to be selling tickets necessarily, but the first book launch, they didn't want to sell tickets for it, but they wanted to know how many people were coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eventbrite will do. So people will be able to find out more through, when the time comes, through something like Eventbrite.
Yes. Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, that's going to be good. I reckon this is going to be a big event, considering how popular the other books have been, Barry, to be honest.
Well, I hope so. And I hope so, because it's going to be... I know I said this last time, but it's not Frank Sinatra. There is not going to be a fourth edition. So this is the last one. And there's a night of music as well after it, which is great.
Fantastic. So get it while you can. Barry, thank you very, very much for chatting to us.
Thank you, Euan. It was a pleasure as usual.
Fantastic. And we'll hopefully see you very soon. And good luck with this year.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.